Sup, my fellas? Don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. Events unfold in 2020. Portals leading to another dimension began to appear all over the earth, and this led our quiet world to the beginning of something incomprehensible. Many countries sent their troops to this gate in order to find out more about it, but not a single soul came back. Then, from this godforsaken gate, hordes of the monster began to pour out. With the all-destroying power they had, all modern weapons were worthless. Everywhere, monsters began to slaughter people, but some patrons began to choose people, and they had individual powers and abilities. They were hunters. With the advent of hunters in the vanguard, humanity began to strike back. Patrons can provide active hunters with additional power, such as providing support, restoring a player, or boosting single-hit stats. Among the countless number of hunters, there was one whose strength was immeasurable, an immortal army of soldiers and the ability to control fire. The whole world called him the Demon King. He had a special skill, a player, only he could level up through hunting. However, under the influence of the 12 great heroes who were considered to be gods, its existence was erased from the page of history, and they, the people who considered themselves gods, created Eden. Hunters were considered a new stage of evolution, and those who could not become hunters turned into slaves. Hunters began to rule the world, and thus 100 years passed. We see a guy running through the woods when he stops to rest. A man sitting on a tree asks if he is finished yet. The guy has reached his limit of strength. He has absolutely no more. He said that he wants to change the world. He really thinks that with this attitude he can become a hunter. In order for patrons to notice him, you need to go beyond your capabilities, the man said. The guy asked that when he was first noticed by the patron, Song Gu-hyun overcame his limit. It wasn't like that. The patrons just started supporting him. It wasn't fair, but life wasn't fair in principle. Even if he was a simple man and a man was a hunter, since the guy couldn't run, let him do something else. The man took out the hunter's equipment. The boy was always amazed when he saw it, but there is nothing to be surprised about. He will understand everything as soon as he becomes a hunter. But after he found out that his parents were killed by hunters, the man gave him a book as a keepsake. It described the nonsense created by the hunters. The young man wanted to correct it. The man helped him get through all these years, but when he looks at what he could achieve, it seems that he will never become a hunter. Becoming a hunter, as they say in Eden, it is only the will of heaven. The man asks him not to worry. He will definitely become a hunter. He assures him of this. He asked him about the book. Of course, the boy still has it because it is the memory of his parents. The man also said that this is the autobiography of a forgotten hero, the story of which was erased by the 12 deities. If only that hero was alive, the world would remain the best place. A certain girl was watching them from the sky. She launched her attack directly at the guys. The man threw the boy back with his strength, thereby saving him. The guy didn't understand what happened. The same girl came down to the ground. She ordered him to bend down with her magic. His body just did what she ordered, and he can't move. It was the Queen of Eden, and the rest of the people were bowing down before her. And it was Athena, and she was a high-ranking ruler. He didn't realize that one of the 12 founding gods of Eden was here. She ordered the men to chase after that man and grab him. He couldn't run far. They only managed to get on his tail, too bad. She noticed the same guy that he left here, but he doesn't feel a drop of magic in him. The autobiography of the Demon King that he now has hides the dirty deeds of the 12 heroes that they have been hiding all this time. But he hopes that she doesn't suspect this and just leaves him. The girl said that he was just a slave and left. The guy raised his head, but the queen stood in front of him. She almost missed the magic power coming from him. There were almost no traces of her left. His heart began to beat, his breathing quickened, and she assumed that he had something that could not be conveyed to her eyes, and ordered him to show it to her quickly and tell her everything he knew. His body moved on its own, which is the voice of the gods, telling himself not to move, because if this book gets into her hands, then he is a corpse. His body didn't listen. He pulled out a book, a story about a demon king who was a true hero of humanity. Eden clearly doesn't want the world to know his story. Everyone who is dear to him will die. If something goes wrong, then the entire area where he lived will be wiped off the face of the earth. This is how Eden works. They forcibly get rid of everything that they do not want, and stands in their way. The girl was thrilled. She finally found the autobiography of the Demon King. She doesn't understand how this boy got it, but she will take it away. When the book was in her hands, a man ran up to her and attacked, then picked up the book. The boy was very happy to see a familiar face. The man said that he held up well and did a great job keeping the book. The young man did not understand how he was able to resist one of the goddesses. He didn't have time to explain everything to the boy, and he didn't think they would find him so quickly, because the boy always said he wanted to change the world, so he puts it down to someone like him. The hunters claim to be gods and rule over the common people, who are as weak as the boy, like livestock, waiting for someone else to deal with them. But if he had the power to change the world, a power that could resist the 12 gods, then would he still be willing to change the world for the better? The boy thought. At this moment the goddess Athena appeared. There was no time. He needed an answer. He could not stand up to the goddess alone. The guy replied that yes, if he could master such power, he would definitely change this whole world. After answering, the man pierced his chest with his sword. If the guy meets him there, then let him be kind to him. The boy did not understand what was being said. According to the contract with the fallen angel received protection, the guy was in a deserted place. Although he was pierced through, there was not a scratch on him. The body feels different than before. The power that is felt in his body. This voice that told him about receiving protection. Is he now a hunter? The magic power he feels is coming from his body. Is he really inside the gate? Behind him, he heard footsteps and hid. It was a goblin. Now he is sure that he is inside the dungeon gate. Even though goblins are the weakest and most basic monsters, they are far more dangerous than you can imagine, which is why they are also called rookie killers. Due to their exceptional sense of smell and hearing, as well as their crazy hunting style, for beginners who start everything without a drop of information, meeting them is tantamount to death. The guy hoped that he would just leave without noticing him, but this did not happen. So the guy picked up a stone from the ground, whether what he was studying would work on him. Although he has no other choice, he can only hope for the skills that he studied in the hope of becoming a hunter. The guy threw a rock, thus distracting the goblin. At this moment, he grabbed his arm and tried to steal a weapon, but accidentally cut off his head. It seems that he really became a hunter. The fallen angel turned his gaze on him. This is the same demon king. Goblins began to run to him because they react to every sound made. There were a lot of them. The goblin standing behind them is most likely the goblin chief, the boss of the goblin dungeon. The guy despaired because he was no match for him, but he remembered the words of a man who praised him for any work and said, as well as his promise that if you get the power, you will change the world. The young man took a fighting stance. He can't die here, he doesn't have that right until he changes this world. The fallen angel turned his eyes on him. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The fallen angel applauded his fighting spirit. The guy was able to defeat all the goblins, thereby increasing the level. When he was still a small man, he said that when he looks at him, he understands what a genius looks like. Ordinary people have limits, but if he gets patronage, he will surely become a hunter who will not be equal. He finished off the remaining goblins, thereby increasing his level even more, leaving only the boss. The rules say that in order to root for the leader, you need to be at least a C-rank hunter, otherwise there's no point in trying. Our hero has just woken up. Most likely he has an E or F rank. Can he kill him? The guy decided that he would put in all his punch. The fallen angel applauded his decision, granted him power over fire. The spear is the demon king's weapon, as well as the best weapon he owns, and now he has the authority to use it. The guy charged a fire attack and went straight at the monster, destroying it. He raised the level, but the strength of the spear fell to 0. He managed it, but as expected after the fight with the boss, this is all he can do. The guy fell without strength. The knights saw the remains of goblins everywhere and didn't understand who killed them all, even the boss. They saw the surviving guy. The fallen angel turned his eyes to him. The hero woke up in the hospital. It wasn't all a dream. Athena appeared out of nowhere and almost took the autobiography of the demon king from him. After being pierced by that man, he woke up inside the gate and almost died because of the goblin leader he encountered. He was able to survive thanks to the possession of fire granted to him by a fallen angel, but then passed out, receiving many serious injuries. Most likely, he was saved by the hunters who entered the gate. There was a girl in the room. She said that he should not move yet. Hunters from the guild of the highest league found him and brought him here. If not for them, she does not know how everything would have turned out. He was seriously injured and was also injured during the incident inside the gate, so someone from the association should come soon, but for now, he should rest. The guy jumped up and asked her what year it was. Apparently his memory was confused. He must be a little dizzy after all. It was now 2022 years old. 2022 years. This is for the 100 years of the hero's birth. The gate began to appear in the year 2012, and in 2022, many hunters began to make names for themselves. It was the era of hero hunters who claimed to be gods and ruled over the common people. He remembered the man's words. His pressure jumped. Unlike his time where one had to become Eden's chosen one to become a hunter, this is an era where hunters directly received patronage from patrons, and he got this opportunity. The hero tore off all the medical devices. The girl was very scared because it was dangerous for him to get up like this. He replied that he was fine. He did not have dizziness. As before, he asked where the bath was. It was located near the entrance. Looking in the mirror, it was indeed him, but he didn't have that kind of musculature, and now he's even taller than 190 centimeters, although his face looked very similar. But his physique and appearance seemed to belong to another person. A man from the association came to him. His name was Kim Soo-yeon. After the incident at the gate, the young man was saved by the top league guild. The man was told that he had blackouts. Is this true? The hero realized that the nurse was talking about this person. He asked to tell what he remembers, for example, his name or family information, how he got into the gate, or something that he remembers. After he was taken to the hospital, the institution itself and the association tried to find information about him, but apparently, as they told him, they were unable to find out anything about him. No name, no family, nothing else. There's no reason for information about him from the future to surface now. They say that the memory loss may be related to what happened at the gate or awakening as a hunter. He's 23 years old, and his name just so happens to come up with the name of the Demon King, Lee Jun-kyung. For some reason, he mixed his name with the name of the Demon King. He doesn't know why, but he had a hunch that it was the right decision. The man was slightly embarrassed. There was a small problem, if so, whether he felt something when he was inside the gate. The hero heard the voice. The representative of the association was afraid. He heard a voice saying that he would be his patron. It seems that he has become a hunter. They are something like specially chosen people. The man thanked him for his time. After their conversation, someone else may come to him, but the association will contact him again. The man is sure that he must be a little discouraged, but he has become someone incredibly important to this world. And after wishing him well, he leaves. The man was quite courteous, our hero thought. Status was one of the Demon King's abilities. The reason why the 12 heroes tried to keep the Demon King in the county, and the reason why the Demon King could stop faster and stronger than the rest of the heroes. Eden was so afraid of it that he erased all mention of it. The Demon King was special, to be precise. He wasn't a hunter, he was a player. Unlike hunters who needed patronage to become stronger, he was able to become stronger without anyone's help. So he was the only one who could grow stronger by hunting, the Demon King. And now this player, our hero. The nurse congratulated the guy on becoming a hunter. Does becoming a hunter need congratulations? But it's like winning the lottery. Because even lower-ranked hunters can become so rich that the average person can't even imagine. Even without fighting monsters in the gate, there are many things that become available to them. For example, he can become a blacksmith who forges magic items using the influence of mana. Or he can become a bodyguard of important people. Huge queues of rich people will line up in the hope of hiring him. He is already aware of all this, thanks to the fact that those who are not chosen are completely powerless. Is this the kind of thing that he should be happy about? The nurse almost forgot to give him the bag. It was from Kim Soo-yeon, a male member of the association. These are the things he was wearing during the portal incident, and they said that he probably wouldn't be able to wear them anymore, but they decided that it was best to keep them in case he needed them. The guy came out of the hospital. It was the era of heroes, Gangnam. Before he wouldn't even be able to set foot in this place. Now everything looks so bright and peaceful. He was approached by the same man from the hospital. He was waiting for him and asked to go through an association with him. He doesn't think that a good ID will walk around the city only for an awakening hunter. Do not worry. As soon as they register him as a hunter, he will be given apartments. From time to time, there are people with a similar situation to his. Also, the man would like to congratulate him in advance. He passed the test for a C-rank hunter. There weren't many people in their country who got that rank right after they woke up, so he suggested that they discuss the rest after they registered it. Hunter associations. In a normal awakening, people receive F or E ranks. The ranks of hunters are arranged in alphabetical order. The higher the rank, the more prospects they will open up, and the special attitude towards them will grow. His registration was completed without any problems, and this is his apartment that he will be staying in. Seeing the great room, the guy had tears in his eyes. The man asked if he liked this place. The guy said that he really liked it and thanked him. Today is a special day because he finally became a hunter. So, to have a home of his own for the first time in his life, The man forgot to tell him that there was someone who really wanted to meet him. The young man was a little afraid of who it could be. There shouldn't be anyone here who knows that he is from the future. It was the guildhead in the top league who saved him. It seems like he himself is interested in him. He can decline the request if he doesn't feel comfortable meeting with a representative. The guy asked again about the guild of the highest league. This is a very active guild which has recently attracted a lot of attention. The guy agreed to a meeting. The top league guild leader introduced himself. He's Yasungu. It was a tall guy with a bald head. Apparently it was him. The hero apologized because he could have offended him. It came out unconsciously. He almost made a mistake. He was caught off guard. He didn't think that he would meet him so soon. This man cared a lot about him. The representative asked if they had met before for some reason. The hero looked very familiar to him. It was he who explained to him the basic skills for becoming a hunter. He lost all his memories after becoming a hunter, so I'm not sure. The man became the patron saint who saved him in his previous life. The boy thanked him for saving him, and the hero who closed countless gates and saved countless people. The forgotten hero who was thought to be dead, Heimdall Sungu. They met him again. The guy was lying in the room on the bed and looked at his body. It's all real, but what happened to him? The body is like someone else's and does not belong to him. But seeing all his moles in the same places, it turns out it is still his, as well as the status of a player, a demon king, a hunter not of this world, and also a forgotten hero. But why exactly does the hero have his ability? He has it like a fallen angel became his patron. Then what happened to the demon king? Nothing else is known. He doesn't think he will get any answers now. The young man has returned to the past and received the most powerful feature that literally everyone wanted. Gain the power that can change the world. In the morning, he was in the Hunters Association in the lecture hall. The group was greeted by Bei Sang-soo. He is one of those who will train them. Everyone was very surprised. He is a B-rank hunter. Why is one of the key members of the association here to train newcomers? It turns out that among them, there is a hunter that the association the eye. Everyone was eager because this was their chance. If they could attract attention, they would be able to get into an association or a good guild. Today they will have a seminar about hunters, after which, as soon as they choose their weapons, they will pass a combat test. Don't be nervous about it, because they know how hunters wake up, and one of the students said that you need to be the chosen patron. This was the correct answer, as the strength of hunters is determined immediately after awakening, but the hunter is able to level up. Ways to level up: this is either closing the gate or the need to earn the patron's attention with some achievement. You can also get certain skills or an item from additional support, the girl from the class answered. He asked a more tricky question. What was the purpose of the patron, as expected? There were no people willing to answer. All hunters asked this question, but no one knows the answer. Who are the patrons? Why do they choose people, turning them into hunters? Everyone went out of their way to draw attention to themselves, but only our hero was sitting and thinking about his own. When the teacher asked him to answer it, because he wanted to hear his opinion, the guy replied, "Isn't it something like entertainment? They choose a character and hunt monsters. Enjoying if he..." Getting stronger, the teacher was shocked. This is what a mind-boggling answer. The Demon King assumed that the patrons viewed their world as nothing more than a game. And despite all the newfound power, he was unable to escape death because of this assumption. The patrons must hold their secrets very dear. The girl chose a sword. Now she will fight with a hungry goblin. Everything is fine. Even if she cannot defeat him, then the teacher will decide whether to pass the test or not. She has nothing to worry about. He was brainwashed so that he could not kill a person or inflict critical wounds on him. The girl stubbornly fought with the goblin. Using various techniques, she was able to overcome it. This impressed the teacher. She was able to counterattack in a similar situation and kill a goblin. She passed the test. He invited the last cadet. Our hero came out with a shield and a spear. It was a strange combination. He will be able to attend further graduation courses only if he passes this test. And if he proves himself now, he will get many advantages. Unfortunately, all the goblins were killed, so the test will take place with a different monster. Since the enemy has changed, the rules also change. He will not need to kill it to pass. It will be enough to agree to the passage from the teacher. The monster was brainwashed, so it won't be able to deal a fatal wound, and as long as the B-ranked hunter is here, there shouldn't be any problems. They probably won't release Cobalt. He's similar in strength to a goblin. The guy was ready for battle. The teacher was impressed with the answer in the seminar and asked not to disappoint him. The monster that he will fight on the last orc test. Orcs have the strength of 2 adult males and incredible vitality. As you know, only hunters at least C rank can resist them. Everyone watching was amazed. Since when do orcs appear in training battles? It was a necessity thanks to the hunter who woke up immediately with B rank. He appeared out of nowhere, and now is one of the strongest hunters in the world. He's the same hunter who woke up with C rank and dealt with all the goblins and their leaders in the gate. Just as a hunter can create something incredible before they awaken, they can't miss a similar diamond in their association. The guy started to fight the orc. He dealt him various blows. The stupid monster attacks, hoping for brute force without any ideas. He expected it to be more difficult. When the monster grabbed his spear, he defended himself with a shield. Everyone was very scared. Isn't it too dangerous, the orc, from the start? This is complete nonsense. The instructor must stop it. The attack was perfect. If it were an ordinary person, he would definitely die from this attack. But his opponent is a monster that he slightly underestimated you. The orc carried very strong blows. If the instructor did not interfere, the end might come. But the guy was able to repel his attack, so even cut off his head. Everyone was amazed. This is really a beginner. He squeezed the spear to upset the balance of the monster. These are incredible instincts. He managed to defeat an orc in class. The teacher was surprised. A newly awakened hunter and already with skills. He didn't even cast any spells, so this is a high-ranked skill. The strength of his shield has dropped to 0 since the beginning of the hunter era. This is the first time this has happened. He has raised his level, and the power over fire has reached the 2nd level. They can't let him go. He has to recruit him to the association, and no matter what it costs him, the guy passed the test. It looks like the weapon can't withstand the power of fire. Some incredible skill. The power over fire is the main power of the Demon King, which he used before becoming a hunter. This is not even a skill, but a power. Unlike skills that cannot be improved except by the support of the patron, it can also be strengthened even at the expense of the player's characteristics. But the equipment simply does not withstand such incredible power to use this skill. He needs at least some metal equipment. He invited the man and the representative to a housewarming party, and they talked to me for a while over a meal about the seminar and his upcoming test tomorrow, as well as places they would like to go. Kim Soo-yeon has been assigned as his supervisor for the final test of the seminar classes, and as far as he knows, it will be held at the gate tomorrow. But he's sure he won't have any problems with it. Speaking of his future plans, what did he decide about the representative's offer? Something inside says, he should not miss the guy. The situation is tense. One of the best guilds in Korea is trying to recruit a hero. This is the only opportunity in life for Lee Jun-kyung. The guy was forced to decline the offer. He asked the reason for his refusal, because he could not understand it himself. He believed that this was quite a tempting offer for someone who wants to become an active hunter. He was right, however. When he first went back in time, he was thinking about all the possible scenarios of the probable future, and the scenario where he got close to his brother so early is too dangerous. He apologized for the time being that he did not want to join any organization, but if they needed his help in any way, he would always be happy to give it to the flesh until he paid them for saving him. The man didn't understand what was going on here. The newcomer is going to help one of the strongest hunters in Korea, and the hunter took the service seriously. Someday he will begin to understand hunters. Today was the final test, before they start. The teacher wants to say a few words to them about the process of conducting the exam. The location of the test will be the gate, but there is no reason to worry, since they will be accompanied by him. This is a B-rank hunter. His magic power exceeds all those standing here. They will leave the gate as soon as I get all the supplies. The students got into the gate. They must have felt a certain pull in the air. It's all because of the strong magic power there. If everyone is gathered, then it's time to move out. When they encounter monsters, he asked them to follow the instructions. They came across the goblin hunters number 1 and 3 readied their weapons and were able to fight back. The next ones were number 8 and 16. They were also able to repel their attacks. Our hero was able to repel several monsters at once alone, so that everyone else was amazed. They doubted that he had just awakened, whether there was any point in training him here at all. How perfect he is with weapons is unbelievable. He is as good as a ranked hunter like teacher. They can't possibly miss him, and they just have to get a genius. Soon they will reach the boss. It is different from these goblins that they have met before. You need to be careful and get ready by drinking the potion, checking weapons and equipment. The Demon King had the strength of a player. He was killed by 24 heroes before he could release his power. This wouldn't have happened if he didn't swing faster than them. Therefore, the guy needs to do everything he can in order to become stronger. Stronger than the 12 heroes of Eden or anyone else. They were moving out. The teacher told them to follow him. Suddenly, some overwhelming magic power appeared. The teacher told everyone to retreat and run to the gate now. The monster started to attack him, but if he came back now, the man got in his way and used his attack to block him. It was a very destructive force. The poison fangs were not able to completely repel the attack. But what about the new recruits? Our hero was able to protect them. But he managed thanks to the fact that the teacher blocked most of the attack. The fallen angel requested him to destroy the great goblin warlock. This is a great goblin sorcerer who can easily destroy hunters. In Ranka, are they really in a low-level gate? They think that there is clearly something wrong with determining the level of danger inside the gate. One way or another they have to run. The only one who can at least oppose the enemy is the hunter Bei Sang-soo. But for the teacher, he will not be an easy opponent. He asked all students to leave the gate and call for reinforcements from the association. Our hero said that he wanted to fight him. The teacher asked him not to overestimate himself. He knows that he has already defeated many goblins and even an orc, but the abilities of the great goblin sorcerer are not based on physical strength. About magical, its magic attacks are able to easily kill a ranged hunter. The great goblin is a warlock opponent in rank, a monster with fire magic, basic skills, fire arrows, fireballs, wall of fire and shield of flame. He knows that this monster is strong, and he knows how to resist it. Aren't all the monsters here designed for beginners to be able to defeat them? So he asked to give them a chance. It was some blind self-confidence, but the teacher agreed. The guy's mission began. He was able to completely repel the fireball. He did not block it, but absorbed it. The students doubted whether they would be able to defeat the monster with long-range attacks. Our hero used the skill of splitting. This is an incredible power of fire. He was able to defeat the monster. This is just an incredible beginner. He really did it. The mission was completed. The fallen angel admires his feat. In connection with the successful completion of the mission, the fallen angel will become his patron. He is given the opportunity to fulfill the call of the familiar. He had finally obtained another ability that made the Demon King so incredible. The teacher came to see the commander-in-chief. Apparently the reason why he wanted to meet him was during the final test, because of the C-rank hunter. He assumed that his rank is actually lower, but it was quite the opposite. Then he asked how great is the potential of this guy. Perhaps the goal to which he was so eager is quite achievable. Then he wants to meet our hero as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the man and the top league guild representative were waiting for him. They were worried when they heard that the rank of the gate they entered had suddenly increased from E to C, but it didn't seem to cause any problems. He found out if the guy had received an invitation to join the association. He was indeed invited, but he has no desire to commit to joining any group. If he joined the association, he would advance faster than however. If he did, he wouldn't be able to hide anything from them. And he is part of the association. He should never get involved with him. No matter what it takes, he should avoid himself. The man asked if she had any food preferences, which was a more difficult question than being co-recruited by the association. He assumed it was ramen, since he likes meat. Then they go eat a ton of meat. In the evening, in my heart, I remembered that battle and my status. None of the ordinary hunters are able to send a familiar, only 12 heroes. Only a small group of people have this ability. It was definitely thanks to her that he was able to accomplish all these feats, so it wasn't surprising that he was able to defeat countless monsters like bone dragons, Balrog and Cerberus. He had acquired the same powers that the Demon King once had, so the familiars he summoned would be no worse than his. He has one chance to send a familiar guaranteed to you by a fallen angel, and that's when he summoned it. In the morning, he met with a man who showed him a post that described the birth of a super rookie who awakened immediately with C rank, who defeated a dungeon boss that only an A rank hunter can defeat. He had heard that he had removed the great goblin sorcerer, but how did he manage it? Why didn't he tell about it yesterday? He was on the front page, but there is no personal information about him on it. But the guy believes that the higher ranks of the association already have it. Recently, hunters are much more popular than a lot of idols, but it doesn't seem like he would be interested in that in any way. There is something he would like to discuss with the man. He would like to participate in the dungeon sweeps. The fallen angel was satisfied with his actions and his level was rising. He cleared the dungeon. The familiar doesn't react at all after all the monsters it kills. Even after the boss dies, how can it even be used? The skull is the guardian of souls. Not a single soul has been consumed by it. Activation is impossible. He is probably incredibly powerful, or endowed with special skills, but he still does not manage to absorb a single soul. All the time the hero thought that he needed the souls of monsters. It seems that he was wrong. The man congratulated him. He had already made the 4th raid in the dungeon. If he has any items that he wants to put up for auction, then he can give them to him. Apparently he is already familiar with the inventory, grabs everything on the fly, As soon as the item is sold at auction, the funds will be credited to the account. But the guy only asked when the next gate that he could clear would be. The man apologized. There were no gates left that could be reserved now. The world is literally torn apart by gates that can't be closed, but he can't even reserve one for himself. The hero doesn't understand what's wrong. A guild has recently appeared that has gradually built up its name. They alone have reserved about 20 low-level gates for themselves. Even if they are low-level, a single guild was able to reserve all 20 of them. He is right. Usually the association rejects such requests, but since all the reserved gate names have already been cleared, the association has no choice but to approve this request. The guy was outraged. He was sure that the head of this guild was named Choi Yong-sung. It really was so. He's right. This is the guild, the Army of the North. It was founded by this man, who was nicknamed Super Rookie before his appearance. Soon, this man would earn the title of hero and firmly establish himself as a subordinate of the 12 gods, and among other things, he would become famous as a ruthless killer, an absolute tyrant. So they met him. Many people stopped building, but other people who are much higher up in the higher stratum of society discussed that because of the riots, the whole situation is out of control. They have nothing to accept. But his master replied that all people are just ants. He said that they will destroy their homes, so that they will build their new homes elsewhere, and whether there is any reason to worry about the lives of some ants. The old man began to gather energy into his sword, and say that all humans were despicable slaves who were allowed to survive. The sword was also flying through the air at the same time, so that a huge bolt of lightning struck the sky. We are once again transported to our main protagonist, who realized that after one incident, half of the inhabitants of the village where he lived died. Of course, it was a terrible tragedy. While our hero was passing by all sorts of gateways, he heard someone's screams. We may notice that some old man is very annoyed with another guy, and also his bike will slowly be broken with the help of his legs. Our hero came up behind the old man, who was already in tears. He asked them what they were doing. Many guys asked who was standing in front of them, but the protagonist only said that he just heard strange sounds, so he came up. Were there really hooligans in front of him? Of course, the bandits didn't like anything, because how could our hero even talk to them like that? As soon as he said that, our protagonist got very angry, which scared the hooligans a lot. He immediately walked up to the old man and held out his hand, asking what had happened. The hooligans then said that this old man himself injured his precious body with his cart, but the hooligan just asked for compensation from that person. The old man immediately got to his feet and began to shout, barely holding his body, that it was all not true, because they themselves kicked his cart and began to beat him. Our protagonist suddenly became aggressive, because did those guys break the cart themselves? The hooligans immediately said that it was a hunter standing in front of him, so he should have known that everyone who attacks him is his enemy, which is why he broke the cart. He began to say that it is necessary to perceive all his actions as well as attacks in his direction. Our hero asked everyone to get out as quickly as possible, or he just won't let them go. The hooligans thought that such a small thing could not order them anything, but as soon as he went to attack our main character, he was quickly stopped with a light grab and thrown over our protagonist. The bully was already lying on the floor, but our hero noticed that there was another bully who was already holding a sword in his hands. The hero could not have thought that he would see a person with a weapon in such a place. Apparently, he even understood what would happen. The bully didn't pay attention to a single word of our main character, but noticed that most likely he didn't have his own guild. He also attacked our protagonist, but was immediately defeated. A few seconds later, all the hooligans were on the floor. Our hero, who looked at his result, realized that if he were not in the topic, he would definitely think that their guild is no more than Mummy's upskirt. After a few seconds, we can notice that these hooligans are being led away by the arm, even though they were shouting about their rights. Many people thanked our Chijun Kyung for the work done. Jung Kyung replied that one way or another, but the deliberate attack of hunters on a common person is a serious crime, and besides, there is strong evidence. The man standing with Jung Kyunum Kyung-hum was saying that there was no need to worry about those people, and the association would keep an eye on that old man. Our hero asked, where is the guild in which those hooligans were located? The boy replied that it just so happened to be the Northern Army that he had asked about. Yes, and it is impossible to take all the contracts for low-level gates without help from the inside, because the head of that very guild is the most rotten person from the Hunter Association. Our hero will even hope that they would act much quieter. But this is simply impossible. It was 2 days later, as expected, that he was called up to the association as an assailant. After a few days, the grandpa who was saved by Jun Kyung changed his testimony. The assailants definitely became innocent, and Jun Kyung, who helped the old man, became the assailant. Of course he understood, but he felt like shit. The guy said that there was no need to worry because everything will be fine anyway because the association is not so rotten yet. Jung Kyung, for his part, knew that the other guy must have known that Kionatha Association was rotten to Jung Kyung from the beginning, so they had already decided to go inside the building in front of them. As soon as our protagonist went there, a man called him to his room. He asked him if Jung Kyung remembered anything after the incident at the gate. After all, if not, then did he also participate in the case with the Northern Army unit? If it's true that he threatened the life of an elderly man, Lee Moon-soo, and also gave false statements about the members of the Northern Army Guild as to who attacked first. But our protagonist said that only this is not true, that all the testimony of those people is fiction. It was at this point that the man decided to cross-examine him. At this moment, the same old man who was a few days ago was very scared appeared. Our hero knew that he was probably being blackmailed by something, so he asked him not to worry. But the old man only said that it was Jung Kyung who attacked him. The interrogating person heard what he wanted, but the old man who just came out missed a very bitter tear, because in fact there was nothing he could do. However, as soon as all this was said, our hero took out the phone with the evidence, saying that now he will speak. After leaving the building, he understood that in any case, the association knew why the testimony had changed. But for giving false testimony, only the old man would have problems. Our hero could not do anything at all. He simply does not have enough strength. But while he was very angry, he was approached by Songgu, who had heard the whole situation. Of course, the guy also had some concerns, so he called Songgu. Because of all the remaining contracts, he was the most influential. Our hero expressed great gratitude to the two, saying that he was grateful to them. But Songgu asked what else our main protagonist was concerned about. So Jung Kyung only said one thing. He said that he was worried about the old man who came running to them at the same time, and fell on his knees, asking for forgiveness. He said that he was being blackmailed into killing his grandson. Of course, he couldn't let this happen, instead of helping our hero. Of course, the guy was shocked, because was he really being blackmailed by the Northern Army? Why is the old man even talking about this just now? But the old man only replied that if he had answered earlier, his granddaughter would have been in danger, so he could only ask for forgiveness in this way now. Songgu promised that his granddaughter would be fine, so at the same time he asked the old man to go home. Of course, Jung Kyung knew that he had a very good habit of shooting everything on camera, because he had been in such situations many times, and from now on he would definitely not lose sight of anything. It was at this moment that Songgu and our protagonist noticed a strange aura. It was the aura of that head of the Northern Army. He said that he did not know that he would meet the head of one of the largest guilds there. Is he really so close to Jung Kyung? The guy was shocked, because did the association have a worm that is the personal informant of the guild head? It was at this moment that the head of the Northern Army said that his name was Choi Young-sung. Sunggu still shook his hand, but asked him to listen to him and understand that you don't need to be so arrogant if you don't want to become an enemy for him and our protagonist. Choi Young-sung noticed that Sunggu wanted to break his arm, so Sunggu continued to speak, saying that he should rephrase. He said that he was much stronger than Choi Young-sung. Everything was going on again in a certain cafe. The guy could not calm down that the punishment for someone who wanted to kill a person was just a fine, when many people wanted to kill a person. Jung Kyung, on the other hand, knew that hunters were untouchable in the future, so he asked what was going on with that old man anyway. The guy replied that perjury is a very serious crime, but due to the fact that he was filmed, the actions of all members of the Northern Army were recognized as wrong. Of course, the old man was released, and our hero understood that this was all the work of Song Gu-hyun. Jung Kyung asked, "So how is it with the Northern Army?" The guy was silent for a while and realized that they were quiet after this incident, and most likely did not do anything at all, because the cold-blooded and ruthless killer who will become the god of War Gunther. He firmly believes in retribution, so definitely something will take place against him. So our protagonist asked to continue to monitor the actions of the North armies. The guy replied that he was ready to do all this, but our hero was filled with a strange aura. He also will not sit idly by, because he believes in retribution no less than anyone. A few days later, we noticed that Sung Gu and the other guild members were wearing protective suits, and they didn't think that our protagonist would contact them to go to the gate together. The hero understood in turn that the gate this time will be Kusha higher in rank, so he requested the support of their guild. Sung-gu replied that there was no need to thank him because only with our hero to fight side by side is a complete delight. As soon as Sung-gu finished, all the guild members started coming up to our protagonist and saying that they also really like fighting him. Because he is a supernova. They couldn't believe that they would be able to go to the gate together again after saving him. Sung-gu introduced them, saying that Choi Chol-young and Lee Han-sung were standing on the left. These two were the ones who saved him, because they are the canoes of his guild. Jung-kyung said that he was glad to meet you, but in fact all the people who were around him didn't even seem to become famous hunters in the future, because the whole story about all this will soon be erased. As soon as the gate started to glow, Song-gu started shouting that it was a C-rank gate, and that was when the dungeon trip started. We are transported to the place where the very head of the Northern Army stands, at whom many raised their voices, saying that you cannot leave the whole situation in this way, as soon as they began to expand the territory of their influence. It was the deputy guild leader Choi Young-soo from the Gunther Guild. Another person, on the other hand, asked if it would be better to strengthen their influence in the existing territories before expanding. He was talking about how their guild members were definitely getting out of control. This was another deputy head, Jung Ying-chung. The first one said that those scoundrels were wrong, that ordinary people were no more than cockroaches who lived only on protection from hunters. He couldn't even imagine that they would bow their heads to such pitiful creatures. As soon as that was said, the armored man simply lost his temper. He asked if his teammate really wanted to go outside and fight. A strange aura rose up between the two, but just as they were about to start fighting, their leader just started shouting that Young-soo was right. They needed to stop. He began to say that for the fact that after finding fault with them, they deserved to be punished in full. He was no less interested in this. The armored man was scared, but the chief replied that many people were acting too arrogantly, so they should be punished. The guy couldn't believe it, so his head just smiled and said that the stage would be ready. They would have to wait for the signal, because in the Army of the North, defeats are unacceptable. We're transported back to the dungeon, where the traps have already been defused, and Sung-gu said that they will have to move out. As soon as they walked a little further, arrows started flying towards them. Sure enough, this was another dungeon trap. Our hero noticed that it would be cool to learn most of the skills that he just saw. He even noticed that Song-gu was incredibly easy to deal with the crowd of enemies. All the goblins just run away from him. He thought that Song-gu was just incredible. It was Young Kyung-kyo who asked for help, so he thanked Sung-gu. And Sung-gu in turn asked, after all, did our protagonist really want to see how strong he was in battle? Jung Kyung replied that their guild was very good, and the headmaster himself was just incredible. He was so strong, even if he didn't show what he was really capable of. However, their conversation was interrupted by another Sogildianist, who said that they themselves would like to see what a super novice can do. Sung-gu agreed, so at the same time, Jung Kyung picked up his weapon. He knew that there was no need to hide his abilities from Sung-gu Hyun. So in a moment, he was rushing into battle in front of the entire crowd of goblins. No one could believe that he could activate his skill without a spell, that he had learned high-level abilities. However, while they were saying this, most of the monsters were defeated. Song-gu couldn't believe what he saw in front of him, that a certain person was able to learn the flame spear and shield. The system showed him notifications that Fallen Angel had strengthened his skills, that his stats had increased slightly, and that the dungeon had been cleared. Everyone came out of the dungeon. They realized that our hero is called Super Beginner. They even yelled at their leader, saying that he was a fool for not being able to recruit a youngster like Jung Kyung. Song-gu smiled and said that his offer was still valid, and his guild was ready to develop further. Our character knew that Sung-gu was right, because Sung-gu was able to understand his inclinations and goals. But the Heimdall he knew didn't have any discernment abilities. However, Song-gu went on to say that the bastards from the Northern Army won't stay quiet, so if our protagonist is with them, they won't dare harm us. Song-gu sincerely asked to join the top league. He will even be willing to give up the position of guildhead. Everyone was shocked by this offer, and Arjun Kyung was also shocked, but he knew that he should refuse. Sung-gu said that there was no reason to show his regret, because our main character's eyes are definitely looking at something much grander. But by this time, a message came to our character's phone that the Hunters Association in need of his help, the Army of the North, had done something again. Everyone, including Song-gu, noticed that the order to mobilize the hunters of the Northern Army and 100 more hunters was something very strange, because considering that the largest guild in terms of size is the Northern Army, it was all too suspicious. Was Choi Young-sung using the association as he wished? After all, if this is all true, then the association is worth starting with. At this moment, the guy in the armor couldn't understand how Choi Young-soo, whom he had known since childhood, and his older brother Choi Young-sung had changed so much in the first place. Did it all start from that moment? He understood that the belligerent but warm-hearted Choi Young-soo no longer regarded the common people as such, and the guild leader considered everyone around him worse than himself, whether they were ordinary people or hunters. The guy realized that they would just try to kill the hunter for the simple reason that they had exposed the authority of the Third Army by their actions. Is it really possible for people to do this at all? But even if that's the case, he just can't leave those two to their fate. He looked at his phone and realized that now he had to choose between justice or friendship. As soon as the evening came, the same man in armor met with our protagonist. He did not introduce himself, as our hero did. He considered it all impudent, because he no longer felt the presence of anyone. Did our young Kyung come to the meeting alone? Of course, he admitted that in fact this is all true, and also confessed that there are no traps either. It was at this point that the guy only said that if our protagonist receives an order to mobilize, then it will have to be rejected, because he should already understand that their entire guild is being mobilized. He went on to say that because he had recently become a hunter, he should have known that hunters were far more terrifying than he thought, especially their leader. He is the most dangerous one, so if Young Kyung enters the portal with them, no one will know what their leader will do. It was clear to everyone that it was dangerous to meet such a person on the street, but it was even more dangerous to enter the gate with him. All it turns out is that the Northern Army Guild is a chaos guild. We understand that there were also devils among the patrons, who gave just tasks for killing people, or tasks for mass murder. Guilds formed by a group of such people were called chaos guilds. The guy in the armor was angry, but Jun Kyung said that if that wasn't what he meant, then our hero simply doesn't see any more reason to warn about the danger, because even after hearing Guild of Chaos, they have nothing to say. This was how his relationship with the Northern Army Guild came out from the very beginning. The guy in armor took out his sword and walked towards our protagonist. Of course, the guy in the armor asked you not to call his guild some harsh words, because it wasn't like that at all. But our protagonist only said that they themselves should have understood what they were getting into, that their reputation cannot be restored. After all, the Guild of the Army of the North was rotten to the bone. After all, the head and deputy head that they trusted with all this became different. After all, it all started from the moment when they met the very person they followed. Of course, there was no battle. The guy in the armor just left by himself, because he realized that Jung Kyung became a hunter only a month ago, but still managed to catch up with the A rank. He couldn't believe that his people couldn't find out everything they could about our protagonist, and our hero knew that he wouldn't attack him. Is he the kind of person who can read between the lines? Did Jun Kyung know about him? Who is our hero anyway? Young Ying Chong is also known as Siegfried, the Dragon Slayer, but his most famous name is the immortal Siegfried. It was he who managed to defeat the most vile monster of the Demon King, after which he obtained unprecedented power from his patron. Tom was granted immortality, and it was in the next battle against the Demon King, after receiving orders from his close friend Choi Young-sung, that he was unlucky enough to become a hero, being killed by Choi Young-soo. Our hero understood that he had to win over such a person to his side, even if he had skills and strength, but the main reason why he needed him was moral principles. After all, in the rotten army of the North, only he kept the balance inside. As soon as the land of the dead was cleared, the durability of Young Kyung's weapon reached 0. His weapons continued to simply fail to cope with his growing strength. He understood that it looked like he had something that needed to be prepared before mobilizing the hunters. He needed a weapon. At this moment, he went to a certain building. It seemed to him that he was in some medieval blacksmith shop. He met with some person whom he definitely knew, because the person who would soon become the wandering blacksmith, the hero of all hammers, Bro, Park Jae-hyun. It wasn't until 4 hours later, when the work was finished, that Park Hyun asked who our character was anyway. Of course, all this surprised our main character because he stood there for 4 hours nearby, and only now he asks who he is. Young Kyung said that he came to order a weapon, saying that the person in front of him was the only blacksmith. The blacksmith once again asked his question, so our main character said that he just came to the nameless blacksmith for a weapon, because no matter how you look at it, everything looked very strange. But our hero only said that he himself noticed the blacksmith's hammers, which hung behind him. The blacksmith noticed that his client had a sharp eye, but he asked, after all, why him? because he had never created equipment before, and this was all for fun. But what all this brought our main character to him. It was at this moment that Jung Kyung became very serious. He said that his patron had brought him to him. It was he who told him to come to this particular blacksmith. The blacksmith was shocked, because really the patron of our hero works directly for him. He couldn't believe all this, but the blacksmith had no choice but to believe it. Because he felt the interference of his patron himself, Park Hyun was also known to have been directly mentored by his patron all his life, according to his autobiography. After all, the one who created all the weapons for the Demon King was Park Hyun. But due to the influence of the 12 heroes, they were scattered all over the world. Park Hyun only supplied weapons for the 12 heroes. The Demon King wrote that, if only Park Hyun had stayed by his side until the very end, they would have been able to change history. Of course, the blacksmith was not yet so confident in himself, in his work, but he cannot create absolutely everything that our hero asks for. Our protagonist could not understand. Because is the blacksmith in a bad mood? Is there any reason for this? But all the blacksmith said was that there were none. He just wasn't very friendly with fire, which was why he hadn't even taken orders from customers yet. Jung Kyung smiled a little and extended his hand forward, which surprised Park Hyun a lot. He said that he would create the flame that he needed. He created a flame and also asked if the blacksmith was already familiar with fire control abilities. Park Hyun couldn't believe it, because how can you just take and control a flame right in the palm of your hand? He thought it was all funny, but at the same time the fire just turned blue, which surprised Park Hyun even more. Our protagonist confessed that he has the power to control the fire as he wishes. This is not just possession, but complete submission. After that moment, a week later, the spear was ready. It was incredible. But the blacksmith said that he could not create a shield, because as it was stipulated earlier, he simply could not create such a thing alone. But still, what was related to the fire was perceived by the blacksmith in full. It was certainly unpleasant to say, but with his current strength, this spear was all he was capable of. But we can note that this particular spear had the rarity of being unique. Our hero could not believe that what he had in his hands was even possible, because even in dungeons they give things no higher than the rarity level, rare. But even if he is a famous blacksmith, and this weapon in his hands is an incredibly rare type, then something more will definitely require the intervention of a patron. However, there are still weapons that improve over time. It wasn't much of a chance, but if he'd had one, he wouldn't have had to kill me every time. However, the guy said that his spear is not finished, because for the flame of our protagonist, this weapon is still low level. He must definitely return, but not be late. Only if Jung Kyung arrives on time, he can strengthen it. At the same moment, as soon as our hero bowed and thanked for his help, the blacksmith noticed a certain bracelet on our hero's hand. He said that he had a very bad feeling about it, that it wasn't worth using it. Of course, Jung Kyung also understood this, however. It was just a guess. But what would happen if he was right? Skull is the guardian of souls. It will be difficult to fulfill the summons while he is involved in the mobilization of hunters, but it will be much grander than he expected. He knew that if he managed to win over Zhang, if Ying Chang is on his side, then the chances of winning will definitely be greater. It becomes much more difficult in general. But even with all this, it is written in the book that this will give him an advantage. There were 2 weeks left before the mobilization. He had to become stronger in these 2 weeks. Even if he has the ability to get stronger by hunting, 2 weeks won't be enough, because even sleeping will be a waste of time. 2 weeks later, a river lord called attention to our protagonist, and the leader of the Northern Army shouted that all preparations were complete. So the day when the Northern Army would rise from the shadows was almost here. He thought that everyone would soon know the name of the Northern Army, and his eyes shone with a desire for revenge. Destroy, conquer. No one could believe that such a huge amount of energy could come from such a person. But others thought that all the conditions for becoming a hero were met. As soon as everyone finished thinking about it, the leader shouted that the world was shaking on behalf of the Northern Army Guild. Everyone was excited, and the leader knew that he would get the title of king. The guy gave our main character a ride in the car, and also asked, after all, does he really intend to go? He talked about how you could die there, that the Northern Army is several times stronger than you can imagine, and the guild that last time tried to go on a raid with the Northern Army was destroyed. It was at this point that our protagonist said that most likely this is the work of the Northern Army too. The guy was so shocked that he pulled off the road. He turned to Jung Kyung and asked him if he was really going to go there, even though he was a very important person to the association. He won't even get hurt if he doesn't go. and he begged very hard not to go. But Jun Kyung just smiled and asked Kim Soo-young to calm down a little, because he said that nothing is more important than life. So our hero will not participate in the mobilization, hoping for the best. He knew that these bastards realized that life wasn't just an empty phrase, but something very precious. A huge portal opened, and many hunters as well as reporters gathered around. Our protagonist told Sung-gu that his guild refused the raid this time. But why? Of course, Sung-gu didn't hold anything back. He said that he had long ago declared that the Northern Army was their enemy, and claimed that the super rookie was his friend. Sung-gu looked at the leader of the Northern Army, who smiled smugly and asked our hero if he was actually going to go, even if Sung-gu asked him not to go. But our protagonist said that Sung-gu isn't there to stop him. Sung-gu exhaled and replied that the official rank in the Northern Army Leaders Association was B, but he had probably already risen to A rank. Sung-gu was shocked by our hero's strength, but he stopped worrying because he probably had a plan. He will even wait on the bench to see how strong our hero will become during the time he will be together with other hunters. Young Kyung didn't understand why all this was happening, but Song-gu only said that if our hero doesn't come out of the gate, he will definitely not get away with what happened. Our character was shocked by such determination that someone wants to destroy an entire guild, but he didn't have time to talk, because it was announced that the preparations were complete. It is on this day that Choi Yong-sung will become a hero gunter, and the gate called the River Rhine will kill countless people. But at this point, the story will change its course, because it is our hero who enters the gate. It is he who will receive all the glory. As soon as many people left and entered the portal, something strange began to happen to him. The leader of the Northern Army realized that everything that he had been waiting for had started. Everyone noticed that a notification was displayed stating that the magic power had changed under the influence of the characteristics of the gate itself. Everyone started to worry about this occasion. How did it happen that the gate went up from level B to level B+? A special feature of the gate also appeared. Now it was impossible to get out of it in the usual way at all. The portal turned pink. Will all the people get stuck? Of course, it was clear that this was the work of the gods, because in one place an uncountable number of awakened ones gathered. The patrons turned their eyes to this place. The density of magic power will increase as the awakened one enters the special ones. Absolutely every person began to feel different. They noticed that the magic continues to nourish their body, and the wound of the gate has already reached level A. Of course, no one could believe this time. They would like to get out faster, because a gate of this level is considered impossible to clean up. Without a hero rank hunter, some hunters just fell into despair. Of course, our main protagonist knew that their reaction was very much expected, because this place could be their grave after all. He decided to turn around, not realizing that in fact, all the leaders of the Northern Army were ready, because they did not even go crazy. Just this situation was necessary for them. As soon as the notification came up that the wave was coming soon, the head of the Northern Army asked everyone to calm down. He understood them. But he was just as surprised as they were. And he said that he also wanted to understand how everything led to this, and the gate was not yet so well studied. Unexpected things happen in them all the time. But I asked, so what's the most important thing right now? Is it really despair? If not, they just needed to survive. He promised that Choi Young-sung, the head of the Northern Army, would clear this gate side by side with everyone standing there. A certain ruler of the current tried to take over the stream, but people were already inspired, because the skill of the head of the Northern Army was that all his inflammatory skills were strengthened 3 times near rivers. But thanks to the influence of the fallen angel, our protagonist was immune to this skill. He looked, and this time saw everything with his own eyes. What the power of the ruler of the currents means. All those hunters who were close to him were simply incited. At first, the head's people wanted to start, but the head said that it was too early. Because according to what he said, the wave of that gate would last for a very long time. The strength of their guild should be preserved as much as possible. They only needed to follow the plan as agreed, because it was their army that would survive thanks to the small fry in front of them. Of course, he won't kill everyone. He only left alive those who spread rumors. The man standing next to him could not understand, after all. Is it really possible hunters are not so stupid? But the head only replied that he would only try his best, because they would send insects from their guild to help, that no one had any suspicions. The guy who was standing next to the head simply had no words, because would the head really sacrifice his guild members for such a thing? However, as soon as the head started looking at all the people again, he met our main protagonist, who looked like he knew all his plans through and through. So he decided to get rid of him first. The head waited for a while and said that Jung Ying Chong, the good dog of the head with everyone, did not even know the other part of the plan, and there was no point in doubting it. So it was he who was asked to keep an eye on our hero, and also when the opportunity presented itself to just kill him. This information surprised Ding Chang, but the head only said that it would be better for the Northern Army. By this time, the wave was already very close. Some creatures called mermen appeared. Many people were no longer afraid of anything, because they were under the influence of the skill. Our protagonist noticed that all the people just rush into battle, headlong without any formation. It was reckless, because they are in the river. He decided that it was time to start and take command because only he knew what to do. Of course, he knew it was too early to get involved, but it couldn't be helped that he didn't fully understand the situation. But we can see that the head was already giving out orders to his army, which surprised our character, because he didn't think that he would use all the boats of his guild. At the same time, a terrifying battle began there. Absolutely everyone was fighting tirelessly. They believed that they could fight against the mermen, because they thought that they could call for reinforcements. However, even with all their confidence, as well as a large number of people, they couldn't cope. Our main character realized that the guys who fight against mermen are the lowest members of the Northern Army. They are used without shame. In order to encourage other hunters, the entire Northern Army sacrifices its people, just like cattle. But for our character, everything was as good as possible, because right now he is moving forward. The man in armor, in turn, saw our hero rush into battle and constantly recalled his expression, which expressed all the hatred for the Northern Army Guild, as well as its leaders. The knight knew that the Army of the North was chasing them away, and if this continued, many hunters and their party members would simply die. However, when he remembered that the head believed in him, he thought that the head must have a plan, because if this is the Choi Sung he knows, then it's fine. However, as soon as he thought about it, all the people started noticing how our super rookie continues to fight incredibly, leaving only corpses behind. No one could believe that such a mercenary was participating at all in such a rank gate. They wanted to know his name. The knight, in turn, can't believe it, because really in those 10 days that have passed, our main protagonist has become so strong. Had he even surpassed the knight? Of course, the wave was cleared. They were given time for a short respite, and some patrons were pleased to give a small reward to the awakened ones. The fallen angel was also pleased with our character. Reward after reward constantly came, and the system notified you about it. Many gods are interested in our character, but will he be able to use several patronages in the future, like the strongest heroes? Of course, the fallen angel expressed his dissatisfaction, and the patron who was interested in them expressed his dissatisfaction, which made our hero worry. As soon as the reward as well as notifications ended, only our hero began to put forward a lot of people, asking which guild he was from. But our protagonist said that it's not over yet, that there are still a lot of waves ahead. So it's better for everyone to hurry up and get ready. The current rank of the carpet should not be lower than a rank. Everyone listened to him and went back to their seats at the same time, but only the head, whose eyes were filled with anger, was dissatisfied with the whole situation. Our character understood that the head only wanted to take over these hunters by intervening at the most important moment, but it was Young Kyung who allowed all his plans. Once this was over, all those hunters would definitely be on his side. Our main character opened up the status and noticed that he already has the 24th level. This gate will become his foundation for growth. Here he will reach level 30, and all these hunters next to them will follow him. After a while, Jung Kyung continued the battle. The fourth wave came, many were tired, 4 died, all the people with whom our hero had a good relationship died. Now it's definitely impossible to leave the gate without any casualties. He clenched his fists and started shouting, "Why is the army still not fully participating in the battle?" The army of the north also expressed its dissatisfaction, but Jun Kyung's dissatisfaction was stronger. He asked if those who were their scum, he even knew their plan, because they were going to stand there and keep their forces and armies. All the people got angry at the same time. They started saying that our main protagonist was right, because not a single member of the Northern Army was killed. None of them was even injured. Our main character asked them to fight to the end, or it turns out that they will just sit back and watch as the other hunters sacrifice themselves for them. Of course, the headmaster knew that his plan, using useless guild members and hunters, was to attack them. But now it's over. Everyone realized that they were going to be sacrificed by the Kama, and now the somewhat ranked members were also alarmed. The plan that he had prepared for him had worked to the benefit of that bastard named Jun Kyung. While the head was standing still, his brother, who was also alarmed, turned to him. But the head decided to calm him down, because he decided to continue watching. He knew that Jung Kyung had already spent enough strength, being them, as well as the head too. And moreover, he understood that our main protagonist would continue to spend his stamina fighting in the vanguard. His face went wild. We in turn understand that the fifth wave was already cleared. A pre-final boss appeared, a huge water golem. But of course it was just incredibly large. It charged one of its attacks. So our hero had to start commanding. He asked everyone to dodge. It was at this moment that the water golem made its first attack, which could have caused incredible damage if not for our main character. A lot of people kept trying to hit the golem with their weapons, with their replicas, with their bows. Well, as soon as they cut down the golem's body parts, they recovered. The attacks just didn't work on it. How were they supposed to cope at all? Jung Kyung joined the fight, and after one incredible leap, he just jumped on the head of the water golem and he was able to hit it with his fire spear. Everyone was shocked, but our protagonist shouted that the gate was full of magic energy. You couldn't use your own powers. It was better to use the magic of the gate. You need to fill their weapons with mana. No one could believe it, because only high-ranked hunters could fill the weapon with mana. But they still decided to try, and they succeeded. It was at this moment that the water golem began to suffer defeat. More and more people understood how to fight. Our hero noticed that the damage on it increased, but attacks of this level will not be able to knock down this monster. So at this moment the spear, which was made by the same blacksmith, began to absorb plans to finish off the same water golem. Jun Kyung decided to destroy the core, which stores everything and his mother, as well as the logical power. Of course, it was necessary to wait for the moment. So as soon as the water golem began to charge another attack, our protagonist realized that this was the only and best time to attack, because it was at this moment that the core of that golem was opened. A moment later, the spear was already flying straight into the water golem's core at an incredible speed and just skewered it. Many notifications just appeared out of nowhere. The system said that all the patrons were amazed, were interested in one person. Our hero returned his spear because he had the ability of return, which he received while raising the level. Now that all the hunters remembered that there was a rumor about a strange hunter with a long spear and shield, they realized that this was the super rookie standing in front of them. Everyone realized that they would definitely be able to survive now, so they decided to trust our young Kyung, who just started receiving rewards for defeating the golem. Not only did his level increase, but he also received a water gem, as well as an achievement called one of those who was able to defeat the water golem. The fallen angel smiled at our protagonist, but other patrons expressed their interest in him. He realized that now he would definitely be able to get a few patronages, but the fallen angel became extremely dissatisfied again, so the other patrons lost their interest. Jung Kyung was upset, but he understood that the Demon King also couldn't have multiple patronages. That king was simply incredible, because even with a single patronage, he was still incredibly strong. However, only our protagonist, as well as most of the hunters, were happy. Unlike the chapter, which could not understand that some newcomer was able to strengthen in such a short time, because what he was just observing proved that our protagonist was too close to the A rank. Many members of the Army of the North already wanted to make their move. After all, everything that had just happened was not part of their plans. They had to start acting. After all, even if the plan of their head is destroyed, then you need to plan a different course and start moving on a new one. So the guy in armor asked to give up. The headmaster couldn't believe that his loyal dog would dare to ask his master to surrender in an attempt to kill young Kyung. So the headmaster started shouting that it was all nonsense, because did his doggy really think that he would lose? After all, it was the head who created the Army of the North and raised it to such heights. He is definitely not one of those hunters who runs away from everything. The headman took out his sword and shouted to his army that they would take a full-scale part in clearing the gate from now on. Everyone was once again under the influence of his skill, and the head understood that a king like him would never allow his pride to be trampled on. However, as soon as the head looked back, he only noticed the helmet that he had received from his deputy head. He remembered that it was the helmet he had received when he took up his position, but now he had taken it off. The head immediately trampled on it and realized that most likely such a person was just clearly asking for death. As soon as the head looked at the battlefield, he noticed that absolutely everyone started fighting with the merman again. They thought they were incredibly strong, but they didn't, because our protagonist appeared again, who continued to incinerate his enemies in huge numbers with his spear. No one could believe that Jung Kyung was on a completely different level from them. But still, many were proud to be a super rookie for them. Our main protagonist has finished with another game, so his level has gone up. From the outside, of course, it seemed that he was wasting all his stamina, but as he leveled up and became stronger, he restored it drop by drop. While he was thinking about this, one of the monsters appeared behind him, but was also killed. Of course, it was Jung In Chang, who took off her helmet. She said that our protagonist was missing the eyes on his back, but our hero didn't need it either. Jung In Chang couldn't believe it, but did our character really give up on her? However, she realized that it was impossible to give up at such a moment. She decided to also make every effort to protect the hunters. She decided to overcome her limit, and also decided to show all her determination to Jung Kyung by turning her back on the army of the North. She fought the mermen and wanted to express her justice in doing so, in protecting the humans. Of course, after this wave, people again suffered losses. Many people were crying from the losses, and our main character understood that in the beginning there were 111 of them, and now there were not even half of them. Ying Chang asked Jung Kyung if he was okay, but he was more worried about her. However, as soon as she wanted to say that everything was fine, she noticed that all the fighters started cursing her, saying that she was a traitor. Our protagonist couldn't believe it because she was still the deputy head. Of course, their army of the North has always been based on the Ubasvata of others, but for all its canoes, it is like a log in the eye with its sense of justice. Our main character in the series is asking her if she will deny it, because after all, she was their second in command, so Jung Kyung asked Tu to join him, because she had already turned her back on the people she had taken care of for so long. Ying Chang said in turn, said that it was for this reason, and with doing all this, she would join him, after all. All the people she left behind were very dear to her. She wanted to take care of them. After all, she could no longer sit in one place. Nothing could even be done, seeing the way everyone is falling further and further into the abyss. Of course, our main character said that their leader would definitely make his move, even if it was beyond his abilities, which Ying Chan asked not to worry because she was ready for it. The final wave began, and the final boss appeared. The system warned about this danger. Many people felt that the ground beneath their feet began to shake in an incredible way. The river rose up and the boss himself appeared out of it. Something that looked like a worm of huge size appeared in front of them. However, Ying Chang was unperturbed. She thought that the army of the North, or rather their leader, definitely had some plan, and this method was given to him by he. But still, before Choi Yong-sung starts hunting the worm, there are those who will greatly hinder the completion of this raid. It is with them that you need to deal first of all, she asked to prepare. Many people, or rather the lower-level mercenaries, couldn't figure out what was going to happen now, but Ying Chang said that the Northern Army had used all of them, so they should have noticed the oddities themselves from the very beginning. They were going to kill them all and then take all the loot for themselves. And she, who was the vice guild leader, was the one who would tell them, and if they didn't believe her, they would just die next. Our main character noticed an incredible change of mood, which is exactly what was inherent in the one whose title is Dragon Slayer, a hunter who becomes stronger from being more and more cornered. Many hunters continued to think that they might still die, but they decided to at least fight back. The whole thing seemed ridiculous to the head because he thought that nothing would change. The army of the North would now act according to plan. He raised his sword, shot lightning into the sky, and decided to make the river worm pay attention to him. As soon as Jung Kyung turned around, he noticed that the worm was sucking up all the water, and then completely shot a huge charge into the sky, after which it began to rain. Most likely, the Northern Army will use the river verve to take over the battlefield. He looked back at the head and realized that if he completed the raid of this gate, he would become another born, rotten hero, the god of War Gunther. But our main protagonist continued to rock all these days, but he doesn't even know if he can win at all. The head immediately smelled victory, and he started to say that Jung Kyung's flame was strange, because it continued to burn under the downpour. Our character did not pay any attention to his words, so he decided that he would fight not against the worm, but against the head himself. They were in a fight, but after the first punch, Jung Kyung realized that he knew. knew that he had not trained in vain. Blow after blow was dealt to the head, so that the head could not move after a few seconds. He could not believe the level of his abilities, because his strength on the riverbank should have increased several times, especially since he had already reached the A rank. However, our hero only said that at the time when he entered that gate, he was already much stronger than the head. Choi was shocked because doesn't our protagonist mean to say that his patron has given Tom incredible support all along? But Young Kyung only replied that he was saving his energy by moving like a small child, and also continued to swing while hunting. Of course, most likely nothing has reached the head yet. He just didn't want to accept this fact, so our hero was stronger, but he still understood that he couldn't beat him so easily. His only solution was to summon a riverworm to help him. At the same time, as soon as the riverworm tried to attack our character, Choi asked not to be so bold simply because he received a little support, because he gave him even more power. A power that is on a completely different level from the one given to Jun Kyung. Now, he will definitely hammer the true power into his head. Of course, our protagonist understood that the riverworm seemed to be protecting its child, or rather its head. As soon as the worm was close to the head, our hero realized that this was the perfect moment. He at the same time burst forward, right to the mouth of the worm. He flew so fast that the head could not even believe it. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.